All right, everybody. Happy Monday, March 25th, and welcome to our weekly mock interview. We've been doing this for actually almost exactly 4 years now since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this weekly mock interview is a chance for job seekers to understand how the interview process works, answer common questions, and get the strategies they need to succeed. With us, as always, is Corey Hiramoto of CareerShakers.com. He is a career coach and career advisor to those transitioning in their careers and looking to master the job interview process. With us today, as well, is Philip Peng. He's an AI product manager, and he's part of our 8 weeks to employed job search bootcamp series. He's here with a job today at Tesla, and we will be going through interview questions with him from Corey. Philip will answer, and Corey will provide feedback on any of these answers. And you, as the audience, can provide your feedback, ask your own questions, or ask for insights on how you can be a better interviewer. Without further ado, Corey, over to you.
Thank you, Albert. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We're a little early today. Normally, we do our scheduled programming at like 5 or 6. So thank you all for being flexible and joining us. This is probably one of our biggest audiences since we actually started these mock interviews. And if any of you are looking for mock interview practice, tips and tricks to get you ready for upcoming interviews, make sure you message me or Albert. We can get you signed up for a following session. All we need is basically your resume and a sample job description. And then if you are looking for other tips and tricks, I've got a YouTube channel, Career Shakers, and then Albert's List has his own YouTube channel as well. So if you've missed other mock interviews for other types of roles, Albert does post all those replays up there. And before we dive into the actual mock interview itself, I always want to make sure that our brave volunteer, like Philip this week, gets a huge round of applause from me and the audience for being so brave and putting himself out there for both learning and entertainment purposes. And to say thank you, we always want to give everybody who volunteers a platform. So Philip, you can feel free to talk about your background so the audience gets familiar with you, and you can talk about the types of roles you're looking for and where ideally you want your roles to be, whether that's remote, hybrid, Bay Area, etc. So the floor is
Okay,
yours.
thank you, Corey. Well, Corey. So I'm Philip. I'm a technical product manager. I've been in a lot of different industry. I've been in banking. I've been telecom. I've been in telecoms and also in marketing, different type of industry. And I have always been started from as a coding perspective, going into a role, meaning that it's always technical hands-on. And throughout the years, I started gaining both product management knowledge as well as also the technical side of it. My passion is mostly on data. I believe data solve pretty much everything in all the software project or data software that I went through. And as the AI being the latest buzzword, the last couple of years I've been retuning myself toward the AI implementations. And luckily, quite a few of the projects I went through also have to do with machine learning, which is what used to be called before AI term come up. And then I found out that with my data skill, it actually very critical for either of those systems to be accurate and to be implementable. And that is basically the direction I'm looking forward, meaning the product that they're kind of leading to like AI to solve a bigger problem that we can solve before. Um, I love Bay Area, even though I don't live in Bay Area, and I think that anything that happens in Bay Area, so either remote, on site, sleep on the desk, I would do it. Oh, sorry, did we lost your voice? Oh, I lost my
No, sorry,
voice.
there we go. And then Philip, just to clarify, today we're going to practice the Tesla job description, right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to post that job description in the chat now. It looks like it's still up if anyone is still curious on it. The tool, this is a product manager role for, looks like basically one of their internal tools and softwares that's going to be used for their manufacturing software to track their cell production, manufacturing, and delivery.
That's correct. The
Okay.
4860 structural battery.
Yeah. Oh, let me put that in the, I just sent that to Albert only. Here we go. put that in the chat so everyone can follow along. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, basically how this works is we're going to run this kind of like in like a real interview. So I'll be the hiring manager / interviewer. I'll ask an interview question, Philip will answer. I usually don't give hints or tips unless you get totally stuck, because we want it to feel like an actual interview setting. And then at the end of each question, I will give feedback on things that I feel like are areas of improvement and also areas that are really strong. That way you can incorporate all of these into your practices and your upcoming interviews as well. So we'll go one question at a time. So we'll go basically question, answer, feedback, question, answer, feedback. I've got some crafted and drafted up based on the job description as well as Philip's background. But if any of you in the audience have questions for me or questions for Philip that you want us to practice, use the chat function, and that way we can get everyone involved. Okay. Are you ready to get started, Philip?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, Philip, why don't you walk me through your resume?
Sure. Actually, all right. Starting on the resume, on my summary, basically that I describe myself as a technical product manager with a proven track record on building machine learning and AI type of solutions. I have been all different units of a software-driven projects. So I'm, starting from like understanding the customer pain point all the way to the delivery, all those things is something that I'm very familiar with. And currently, that's why the role I'm looking at. I have something that I accomplished over the years, especially when things that have like high return. Like for instance, like one of the matching system that I was able to go in and help improve, and they have a 37% jump into the match rate. Another one is sometimes that, like a banking system where we have money statement that is kind of slow. Those things are coming, I'm able to improve it like 400% over time. So those are the things that I kind of proud of, but there's a lot more things that I've done that, too many to mention. In terms of my technical skills, I'm very data focused. I've used a lot of different data tools from IBM DPD, those old database to all the modern database like Snowflake and the NoSQL database. So those are skills that I do have, and I am a learner. I like to play with things, and the good thing with data is that once you know one set of data skill, you can apply to another one. And then also the reporting. That's another aspect where over the year with the project, I learned how to make data make sense to the users. They need the data. In terms of the work experience, currently I'm a consultant for Cloud Effort AI. It's a company that we implement mostly agile software improvement. And I'm there to work with the customer, get a requirement, and coordinate with the implementation team, which take very quick time. Like within the 2 days to 3 days, we can have software ready. That's the nice part about this Cloud Effort AI tool, where we have AI to help building the software. Prior to that, I was working with Integrate.com. My role was kind of different than all my previous role before, where it was a little bit less technical hands-on, but where I'm able to work with executives and also with the board, key people to make decisions. So I was in charge of getting all the data necessary to let them help them make the decision properly to run the company. And then prior to that, sorry, it's reverse chronological, right? I was working on Dun & Bradstreet. That's where I've been managing several systems. The most important one was the one that I kind of mentioned earlier about a web matching system where I was able to increase by 37%. But there was another database where it's one of the key products that we sell, where we can help marketer to help them score their leads to make it more effective on their marketing campaigns. Prior to that, I was in Lattice Engine, which is a startup. And from there, that's where I was kind of doing to the tech side, doing all kind of things, because as a startup, there's no support. You have only data analysts to come in to do stuff. And there's a part where I gained a lot of knowledge from AWS, dealing with big data and other information as well. And then previous before that, I spent almost a decade in the marketing agency spectrum. That's where a customer come to us anywhere from building a CRM database to data integration to do campaign pool, check campaign effectiveness, auto swing, everything related to campaigns. That's where I've been. And I myself, I have a master's degree in computer science. I graduated from Florida International University, and I speak multiple language. I speak Chinese, Spanish, and a little bit Japanese right now. And then my hobbies is like I like to do hackathon, anime, and martial arts.
Okay. All right, cool. So this is, usually the standard warm-up question that all interviewers and candidates will get. But in particular, I started with this question for Philip because how your resume is presented, it like a lot of your roles are, I think you've called yourself like a data product manager or product
That's
analyst,
correct.
right? And so as a hiring manager, I may not know how it is related to being a product manager. And that's why I probably would start with like a tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume, because I want you to help connect those dots for me. Like, are you actually a product manager or are you more of like data analyst? Is your role a hybrid of the two? Kind of marry those up for me. And also for these types of questions, I know the natural reaction is to take the question literally and walk me through your resume as you did, right? You started top to bottom, summary, first job, second job, third job, fourth job, where you got your degree, interests, etc. But you don't have to necessarily do it in literal fashion. You can think of it basically as, why should I hire you? So here you want to customize your answer to be as close to what the job description is looking for as possible. And this is more true, I would say, for product manager roles than it is for any other type of job, just because for PMs, it's super specific, right? Especially at these larger top tech companies like Tesla, they have the luxury of hiring exactly who they want, who has done exactly what they need them to do as a prior experience. And so you ideally would need to fit that mold. So everything you talk about to me should be related towards, in some fashion, what's in this job description. So for example, this is an internal tool, right? This is all a software stack, and they tell you what's in the software stack. So React, Go, PostgRE, SQL, Kafka, and Kubernetes. And I know that you have a technical background because you have a master's degree in computer science. And so it would be good if you told me what experience you have with React, Go. I know you mentioned a little bit of SQL, right? But anywhere that you have familiarity and expertise with the software stack is obviously going to help you as a PM here, especially because this is a technical PM role. And then anytime you've worked on an internal tool would also be very helpful, because that's different, right, than building a product that goes external, because you're not really necessarily doing as much external customer research. All your customers are internal stakeholders. So it's going to be a little bit different in terms of like how you gather requirements. It's going to be obviously a lot more dynamic as well, because you'll have internal stakeholders making requests all the time, and they will expect you to be able to meet those goals because you're not having to do external product releases, etc. So it is going to be different. And so anywhere you can customize this closer towards what they're specifically looking for at Tesla will be super helpful. Also, this tool has a UI and UX component to it. So any experience you have in that space would also be super helpful. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
Okay. And then for the walk me through your resume, tell me about yourself, why should we hire you? Your answer ideally wants to be somewhere between like a minute and a half, 3 minutes, somewhere in that frame. Like 2 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. And in order to do that, like you don't actually have to go literally through the whole resume, right? Just pull out the parts and bits and pieces that are relevant for what this role wants. And this is going to be true for any type of PM interview in general, right? Like you want to talk about all of your experiences, your product knowledge, your industry knowledge, etc., that matches super close to, if not exactly, what it is that the company is hiring for. And a lot of the times in their job descriptions, they will tell you if it's an internal tool, external tool, who's going to be using it, what the software stack is, etc. And so the closer you can get there, the better.
Makes sense.
All right. Okay. So now that we got that warm-up question out of the way, let's go towards, let's try this one. Okay, can you tell me about a really key product feature or even product itself that you came up with? And what was the impact or benefit that it had for the product or the company?
Sure. Well, key project that I did, they have a key product they come up with. So during my tenure in the Lattice Engines, when we were having building this data platform where we can kind of provide data to a customer to purchase to build their marketing lead scoring. And then what happened was that our system has been using a lot of parameters to build a machine learning model. And so what happened is that model, it was built and was just nobody wanted to touch it. It was just working as it is, and it's getting slower. It's getting very kind of like unstable. Because what I did is basically I was going there, I started like doing some QA system on it, and then I realized that as I look at the data itself, work with data scientists, that is lacking a dimension of data that can help matching what a customer want. So what I end up doing is I was identify the gaps. I got some test data, make a proof of concept, and then I show it to the management, and then to show that what kind of impact we could have, and then I got their buy-in. From there, I started working engineering to try to bring this new data set into the modeling process itself, and it actually able to at the end it was able to improve the matching process, and actually also at the same time also do some reduction on the useless data field that we were using, and the process become faster and also become more accurate.
Okay. And then did you run into any problems or challenges when you were trying to update the data set?
Oh yeah, it does, because in nature it blocks one of the 7 models that we have used for QA testing, and then we have to dive into it, and it turned out there was a bad build on that model that caused the problem. So I was able to work it out the detail and then resolve that with something not expected, because we used to have assumed those models will be very, very strong, but they turn out they are not.
So how did you solve that?
By actually identify a new set of data, match the data we have, and then we build it, one that kind of tailored to it. So basically that we have to rebuild a data set just to build that.
And then what did you rebuild?
In our platform, basically we use Python to rebuild on. So the way to let me step back. The way to build a model is require several pieces, right? First, you need data, and then you need to have the algorithm which is written in Python to rebuild the model to it. That's usually these 2 pieces combined together to generate the end one. So in this case, I have to identify the correct data because the old model was based on the wrong data set, or the data is no longer relevant. So this data coming in, we build a model, and then we test it out as a model itself, and then test out the data.
And what did you change specifically?
Quite a bit, because the data that we build is based on the usage of the data of that particular model. For instance, each of the model is based on some of the customer who offer us to teach the data. So we look at those data sets coming in, and then it was some of the data was kind of either outdated or they have newer dimension that didn't bring it in. So what I do is I take those key, combine with the new set of data, set up the new data, set up the target data, and then put in the machine learning, and then generate the model. That's how it's being built.
Okay. So we'll move on to the feedback section here. So this is a behavioral question, right? Because it was tell me about a time where you had to do X, Y, and Z. So you use the STAR format, which you did: situation, task, action, result. Ideally, you want your answer to be somewhere between like 3 minutes and 5 minutes. Your answer was a little less than 3 minutes. And so I tried to get a little bit of additional information from you with these follow-up questions, right? I think the example itself that you chose is a good one, right? Because you were able to drastically improve a product after identifying a core weakness and then working through it technically in order to solve the problem, implement it, and then you had obviously a very good result. So I think the answer selection was very good. The part of the answer that needs a little bit more detail to be worked out is the actions part, right? Which is why I asked all these types of questions, because you did keep it pretty broad in general, and it could just be because you know that I myself am not a technical person, and maybe in a real interview you would have gone into more technical depth. But just in case, it is better to go a little bit more in depth on the technical side, especially for PM roles, because they are looking for someone who has that technical breadth. And so being able to explain to me what specifically was missing, how you knew that it was missing, why it was causing the error in the algorithm, how you like what specific changes you had to make, what your specific involvement was in it from a technical perspective versus what you were delegating to other teams would also be very helpful, right? And those are the details that I'm still currently missing in the existing version of your answer, right? Because based on how the story is being told now, I don't necessarily know what specifically you had fixed. You told me that there was something wrong with the data set and that you had to improve it. And then when you did, there was better efficiency matching, etc. But I still don't really know what was wrong with it and how you knew that something was wrong, and then what you specifically had to change, right? You kept it very general. You were just talking about, oh, this is how it's done, and then I did that, right? But it's more about, well, okay, this is how it's done. But this, like the core data itself, the core data set itself was no longer relevant because why, right? And then what new type of data did you have to go and gather? How did you get that? Then how did you put it into how did you ever do the Python thing to output into an algorithm, which then you use to do something else, right? Those are the pieces that are actually really important that I would want to know as a hiring manager is like how good is your problem solving skills? How are you at identifying root causes? And then how are you able to transform those pieces into technical requirements and then eventually build out a product roadmap? Does that make sense?
Totally. I kind of this helped me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just check the chat here. Recent interview test. Well, why don't we try this question? Actually, I mean, it seems like this was for a product design question, but it would still be relevant for a PM because you obviously have to do the collaboration. And so thank you, Kate, for the question. So let's go with this one. And for those of you who are following along on Facebook or aren't checking the Zoom chat, someone watching said that they recently had an interview at Tesla. It was for a product design role, and they were asked this question. Oh, never mind. It was for a PM position. So even better, you're hearing it directly from someone who was interviewed for a PM role at Tesla. So this was one of the interview questions, which we'll practice right now. So Philip, imagine you have a ping pong table, a cafeteria, and some free space on one of the floors in the office. How would you improve collaboration and cooperation between different teams within the company using these three facilities? So that's a ping pong table, cafeteria, and free space in the office.
Okay, wow, ping pong table. That's awesome. So is it just one ping pong table or more than multiple ping pong tables?
Yeah, let's just go with one because that's what it says. One ping pong table, you have an entire cafeteria, and free space on one of the floors in the office.
Got you. Well, for ping pong, I would assume it's kind of like a popular spot among the current workplace. It is kind of indoor and it can be played anytime, anywhere. So this kind of good spot to help people to relieve the stress. And naturally, on my previous work, we have somebody do that as well. We have ping pong tables, so so that's great. And then in terms of cafeteria and space, right? Because I can imagine the factory is such a huge places, even if you put it in certain spaces free, not everybody can see it, right? You can, find way to market to the people through emails, through word of mouth. But I would think that maybe through a cafeteria kind of promoting maybe through poster or something that, you know, when people are taking lunch, they'll be able to see, oh, there's a ping pong table, and then also a map. They can show, hey, this is where in the factory you can go and play with your friends, right, or coworkers. They can do that. I think that will be a good way to promote the location where it's going to be. And then on top of that, what I would do is technical possible is to maybe put some streaming or some scoring. So when people are eating lunch, they can, you know, kind of like watching a real-time spot, right? Because I think that the idea is to have this enabled everybody in the company to be engaged to it. And in doing so, you want the people, like, even though people that don't play, because you know, at one table there's so many people, right? You put some scoreboard or some sort in the cafeteria style where people go in and discuss, you know, and talk and kind of challenge themselves to do that. I will kind of use the cafeteria basically as the medium to cross market it to everybody to go there. And the goal is to, you know, ensure the table is 100% occupied, right? Or maybe we can also put it in a way where people can sign up from cafeteria, say, hey, you know what, there's a time slot available 2 p.m. after lunch, you know, people can sign up to go and use that.
And then how would you use the free space on one of the office floors?
Oh, sorry. That's where I meant the ping pong table should be in the free space table, right? That's where you can put, assuming there's no space in the cafeteria itself. And it could be possible that it can be movable depending on, you know, like the how many people work in certain area. You want to make it easier for people to go. Maybe we put a process where, you know, weekdays this is going to be in office space once, and weekends going to be office space two. It depends on the, you know, how the flow on the teams, you know, is around to use it to maximize the efficiency for it.
Okay. Cool. I mean, this question itself, I guess, is pretty interesting and unique. So I'll do my best to kind of analyze and answer here. Kate would love to have your feedback as well. But if I'm looking at this, okay, so the main objective is to increase collaboration and cooperation between different teams within Tesla using 3 different facilities, right? Ping pong table, cafeteria, and I guess random free space on one of the office floors. So knowing that the goal is to improve collaboration and cooperation, that's probably where you should anchor all of your ideas and solutions to come from, right? It's every activity or each facility should be used with a specific goal in mind in order to improve either collaboration or cooperation between different teams. And so I think you did a good job of maximizing the efficiency of the 3 facilities, right? And even combining them, right? Like you'd put the ping pong table in the free floor, and then you use the cafeteria in order to promote the ping pong table and provide a map, etc. So you were able to find synergies between the 3 facilities, right? But for me, I think the crux of the question is focused around collaboration and cooperation. So then you need to build on top of that, right? Which is, okay, how does playing ping pong therefore improve collaboration and or cooperation between teams? And or how would meeting in the cafeteria provide a different type of collaboration and cooperation, relationship building, etc., than playing ping pong, versus also just using free space on one of the, you know, cafeteria on one of the building floors? How would that be a different? How could you utilize that venue to achieve a different type of collaboration and cooperation between teams? So I think that's still one part of the answer that's a little unclear. But I do like how you're able to find the synergies between them, which, you know, obviously as PMs, everyone loves synergies, right? And then if I'm looking at this one, I think they mentioned part of the interview was around metrics. How would you understand that your solution works? I mean, it's always hard to measure collaboration, but I guess you could measure based on productivity like, I mean, and the productivity would be easy to measure if this was a production like facility, but Philips product is not really on that. I guess you could measure like the
Or maybe
project
we can put
timeline and like
some,
sprint timelines.
yeah. Or maybe we can put some metrics in there where, you know, not just the number of people, but number of group of people participating in, right? Because imagine the whole manufacturing process, you have the physical hardware production, the software, the CPU, all those other good stuff, right? So you want to measure how many, like a balance between those group of people they have enough represent to play, and that kind of you know show some collaboration, right? Because like you know it's not guaranteed, but you know the more the ratio come in, it can represent that hey you know those group actually communicate not just through work but also through a sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you could do like pre and post survey about collaboration before and after you host like events and stuff. But yeah, very interesting question. Very, very interesting question. The chat says, I'm a non-tech professional with management experience across 5 industries. I've been self-learning through AWS, Coursera, etc. Can I target product owner roles? Product owner, I assume that's the same as product manager. Non-tech professional with management experience. Management experience meaning like you're a manager or like a director. I would say, I mean, you could be a product owner in a non-technical company. I don't think they call them product managers though. I forget what they call those. But it would be difficult to do a tech PM role without any tech experience. I've seen some people make the transition from like without a technical background if they go get an MBA. I've also seen people from sales make the switch. I've also seen people switch from technical program managers into PM roles. But even to get a technical program manager role, they look for folks with technical experience. Not that it's impossible, but it would be a little bit more of a difficult career switch without a technical background. But then again, you don't have to go for a tech company. You could be a product owner at a non-tech company. Have I seen anyone switch from technical operations? If that's the same as TPM, yes, I have. All right, cool. Super active chat today. Okay, let's go to another one of my questions here. Okay, Philip, imagine we hired you here at Tesla to work on this internal tool and software. And so imagine that you wanted to implement a new feature related to our software tool, right? But the executive team is hesitant and isn't sure if they should approve you to go ahead and do that implementation. How would you handle this?
Well, obviously that what I would like to do is I want to show them the facts why this is important, right? And obviously that I would develop my business case to say why the reasons on this particular feature will have the impact to the team. And then the specific could be depend, but it's just a matter of collecting data. I mean, I believe in anything can be collectible, even something like like an impact that is kind of nebulous. That you can do some data collection on that. And then what I would do also is like what other things on the roadmap or my roadmap that I want to do, that I need to do, I will compare them. Why the reasons, this impact will have a lot more compared to the other roadmap entries. And, either this is a strategic movement or it's a long-term gain where we have to implement it. I will try to bring up those comparison, and ultimately I will let the executive make the decision to decide on that.
So imagine that you've already presented this as a part of your business case, right? Which I assume you would do the first time, right? You present your business case and then they say, I'm not really sure if we should approve this, Philip. Seems kind of expensive, or it seems like it would take too long. for whatever reason, right? There's multiple reasons as to why they may be hesitant. So what would you do then?
Well, I guess I may have to pull. I don't know if I have to convince them right then, because they already, if I give the information, they will say no. Then it's very hard if I keep pushing it to continue. But what I would do, probably like maybe have a second chance to talk to individual of those executives and her to explain why this particular align with what their interest is, right? Try to get a poll, to talk to them, and hopefully can convince them through that direction. But with just to prove it right then and then with all the data in there, it just you make sure that will be kind of tough to convince them right then and then. So I would do like a more off the side, try to regroup on it.
Right. And so in your experience, what are common reasons as to why a leadership team may not approve a product feature?
Usually because there's something else in mind. There's something that's important to them. That's what they've been driving toward. They have their own dimensions. But oftentimes, that you can translate what you have just a little bit more detail to each of the stakeholders, the owners there, right? You need a little bit art to talk to them to try to find out. It might not have some time, but also through trust and also through working relationship, usually those things then tend to go to my favors.
And then, so besides the when they may have another feature in mind, what other reasons would they have to not approve something?
Cost, like you have mentioned, there's another one, and then also that maybe they just don't want to how you say it? They just don't want another headache. Because this, no matter what, a change is could be a headache, right? And every one of them just want to do the things that they want. So I think it's time and the resources that they worry about.
Okay. And then, so how would you alleviate those concerns?
Well, usually what I would do is like, and a lot of time this happened to me before. It's like we need to build some infrastructure to accomplish new features, right? And those are the ones that in my position where I can see different people requests coming in, and I can see that there's a vision where we need to invest time. In one of those things where we explain to them where we want to go faster, we have to slower first, right? Which is very tough. But then what I usually explain to them is like, if you build something like this, we do it like that, it'll be very, you'll become quick, but you'll be very rigid. Where if you do in this stage approach, it may take a little bit slower, but rather you'll be able to do a lot more interactive, a lot less risk to the client using the software, and others benefit to pitch against it.
So if their concern is budget and resources, you would make them feel more comfortable by saying it's okay to go slower?
Yeah, have to convince them, because if they go the other way, then the thing will be, it's like you guys have to fight with each other, and and only one win, not everybody win, because that's what we have right now in the platform, right? Assuming the platform has a bottleneck where you can do one, not the other way, because it's so rigid on the approach. It's actually this a real situation that I have before.
Okay.
Sorry, are you mute?
Okay.
Oh, no.
Okay. All right. So we'll move to feedback here. So this question, just because I read it a while ago, so people can follow along. The question was, imagine you were already hired here at Tesla and you wanted to implement a new feature for the internal tool, but the executive team is hesitant on approving or giving you the resources, budget, etc., in order to make these changes or implement a new feature. And how would you handle that? So this actually is less of a technical focused question, right? This question is focused more around stakeholder management, cross-functional collaboration, building business case, gathering data, customer data, market landscape data, etc. And so here, the first thing you want to do, which is what I was trying to kind of guide you towards with the follow-up questions, right, is you want to identify potential reasons as to why, after you give your initial business case, which we all know, you come prepared with your data, your numbers, your metrics, explaining the benefits as to why this feature is so helpful. You talk about why you came up with this idea, why this idea would be good, and then of course you have your forecasted, anticipated results and/or benefits. So assuming you've done that, and then they still are hesitant, there's going to be reasons as to why that they're hesitant. And as you mentioned, one is budget, resources. The third is they may have ulterior motives, right? They may have another feature in mind that they were hoping you would propose, but you didn't. And so they're going to keep denying you until you approve or want the one that they actually want. And then I forget whatever your fourth one is, right? So because this is a hypothetical imaginary scenario, you don't know which one of these reasons is the real reason as to why it may not be approved. And so therefore, you should walk me through each of those, and that's basically going to comprise your answer, right? So your first question may be, okay, can I assume that I've already provided all the necessary details, data, etc., on my business case, and they still are not approving? Then they would say yes. Then you say, okay, so I don't really know why that they would not approve it, because obviously this hasn't happened yet. But if they weren't going to approve, it'd be one of these four reasons. If it is this first reason, how I would handle that is X, Y, and Z, right? If it's due to budget concerns, then I would talk to them about how either I could borrow resources from other teams, or there are engineers who have similar skill sets that I would need to, implement this feature, build this product, whatever, that I could borrow from other teams. Or I could train junior engineers without having to, hire net new resources in order to build this. Obviously, it would extend the timeline, but the budget would, not be a concern. And then on the flip side, right, maybe they're not concerned about budget, but they're concerned about resourcing and timeline. Then how would you address those concerns? Well, then you would have to talk about how you could potentially increase the timeline, even though you are implementing a new feature. Maybe that means there was another future feature on the product roadmap, and you're going to have to cancel that and replace it with this one. And then therefore you would have to have two business cases, right, as to why the pre-planned feature may not have the same benefit that this new one would have. And therefore, by swapping them out, you're not impacting the project timeline and or resources, but you would have significantly better benefit. And then for the third one would be, handling ulterior motives, which you talked about, how you would have to have individual conversations with folks on the approval team. We'll work through their concerns, address some of those, etc. Right. So that's kind of how you want to structure your answer and where you want to play it. And that will allow you to showcase more your stakeholder management skills, right? As opposed to just being like, oh yeah, well, if they have that concern, then we would talk about it, and then I always get it done, right? But it's more in this imaginary scenario, which is what makes it difficult. You don't really know what's going to happen, and so just walk them through all the different alternatives, and then how you would handle each one of those. Okay, and then I think I saw a question in the chat somewhere. It was in here. Okay, yes, I see this one. So let's try this one. Next question. How do you maintain long-term consistency in UI while addressing competing short-term requests from stakeholders to tweak software and dashboards?
It's a long question. I'm trying to look for that question again. How do you compete?
How do you maintain long-term consistency in UI while addressing competing short-term requests from stakeholders to tweak or modify software and dashboards?
Got it. How to maintain long-term consistency for short-term changes that are coming in. So what I would do first is to try to gather as much of the feature requests as possible. Most of the UI requests, you can group them into different categories, right? Some of them are really like, short-term fixes. Some of them is like, a little bit more like a modification, minor modification. Some of them actually, even they think it's a small change, but it require a total overhaul of the UI, right? So basically you want to group them, and then what I typically do is work with the designer and try to discuss them and brainstorm and find where some of them have some similarity and some of them have difference. And usually, the design team and also my instinct will come in to suggest that, hey, some of these change can be do it this way, but some other change that, it can be done by, implement some a set of things to support it. And some of them actually require a total revamp on some of the UI to implement that, right? So what I would do, I take those requests, I will group them, have to analyze and try to say that, hey, you know what, for these features, we can put a pipeline in here. And some of the medium term one, we can also put a pipeline to work. But then some of the bigger one that I have to go back and convince the stakeholder, say, hey, you know what, this thing is really requires some reform to implement it. And hopefully they will get a buy-in where they can allow us in the UI team to come up with that implementation before they can implement those sort of changes. It's tough, sometimes that when you deal with that, right? Because everybody wants a feature right away and immediately. And maybe if you have to do some tactical terms, some of them, we just can't deny it. Then we those one that we can push it through the short terms. For those other one, maybe we will say, hey, maybe for those feature, we will just build maybe the basic of it for now, just to help them say test the water and stuff like that. But actually, the bigger one will be doing the rewrite on it. So kind of analyze them together, try to see where we can group them together to implement the one that we can, with the other one that require more long-term strategic thinking. Those are the way to break them into, talk to the stakeholder to be thinking that, either we have to do in future phases or we can do it some of them now, but then we have to change it into the future.
So what if the stakeholders don't agree with you and they feel like you should prioritize their changes now and not part of a longer term roadmap?
Depend who is talking on the company. Some of them are, there's no way to do it. But luckily, most of the time you can negotiate, in some way, to give them to get the value for them. I think those are the ones. It's not like compromise, right? To try to get minimum what they needed, as fast as they can to because I would try to understand what is the need, why they need this so urgently, right? Everybody have their own thing, right? But when you talk to them, they probably have some reasons, and then most of the time they don't need everything at first, right? So those are the things that I would play with to try to say, okay, we can produce some of them now. Where's the other one? We'll group it together for the other one and explain to them the benefit why we're doing that in the long term, where they can accomplish a lot more, right, in the long term.
Okay. All right. So this question is also more stakeholder management than anything technical. And the part where I was thinking through was, I'm not sure if we were able to answer the original question effectively, right? How do you maintain long-term consistency in the UI while addressing competing short-term requests from stakeholders to tweak software or basically to tweak the UI, right? So in a simpler way, the question was, how do you maintain long-term consistency in the UI while addressing competing short-term requests to change it in the short term? And so your solution was to bucket the requests in short-term, medium-term, and long-term changes, and then do the short-term ones where you can, and then do the medium ones when you can, and do the long ones later, right? That was your answer. But I'm not sure if that allows you to maintain long-term consistency while addressing the requests in the short term.
That may not be one way to do it, right? it just happened to be something that I saw in thing. UI always changes. UI never stays stationary, right? That into a long term UI stationary. There's some strategy they put it in, and I because everybody do it so rushed to put on the first phase or second round of time, or third time around, right? So the UI constantly have to keep change and continue to improve. At least that's the experience with the software that I've been dealing with. So, but yeah, you're right. With the thing is like, hey, that this the only way. We're not changing it at all. I still think that the bucketing will work, right? To try to smooth out, the abruption of changes to the UI itself.
Yeah, and I think where we may want to go with this is we need to anchor on something. So I would say the anchor here is the the product objective and the features should be the underlying driver for all of the UI changes that should be implemented. And then therefore that's how you would prioritize them versus short-term, medium-term, and long-term, right? And so that's the type of conversation that you need to have with your stakeholders if they are pushing back on you when you're saying that, hey, sorry, your UI requests are actually going to require large overhauls. And so therefore it's going to be a longer term fix and I can't implement these right away. We can do short term changes, but you won't be able to see the full UI change that you want, for, X, Y, and Z months. And when they push back on you, then you should be driving that more towards the product itself, right? Like what are the product features and or goals that you're trying to deliver and or achieve? And if they don't see that their UI requests actually align with that, that's why you're not able to do it in that fashion, right? It's not that you don't feel like it's valuable or important. It's just the underlying goal is to drive and deliver an effective product for internal use that allows you to achieve X business goal, right? So one of the examples that they gave in the job description is to be able to improve their ability to track cells going into vehicles and traveling between factories across the world. So that's the underlying objective of the feature and or software that you're trying to do. And they need to understand, therefore, that if their UI request may make it look cooler or better or whatever, give them a new dashboard. But if it doesn't ultimately achieve this goal, which is to improve the ability to track the cells going into vehicles and traveling between factories, then it will be deprioritized on your product roadmap. And I think that's where you need to anchor your conversations and how you need to be able to handle these types of concerns and strike that balance between short term and long term. Okay, guys, there were so many good questions in the chat. I'm just going to go in order. To be fair, I'll go with the one that was asked right after that one, which was okay. We'll do this last question. Well, actually, that's more stakeholder management. Let me do one that's more technical. Yeah, let's go with this one. Okay. So Philip, imagine that you are going to launch a new product feature for our internal tool, but it may potentially hurt another product. How would you manage this?
Got it. So we have a new product, but it may affect another product we have. So we need to gather the facts for sure. What kind of impact are we impact the other product? Are we like completely killing the other product, or are we reducing the usage of the other product, or are we going to have like different data because we have more real-time data and they have more like delay data that will cause them to be less stress to them. So we have to understand which one of them, what that is. And then I would say that, have to quantify about what's the business objectives, right? And to see if this is what the direction the company wanted to do. And from there we can work with the business unit and the other people to explain to them along with the management to say why we're doing this and what we're trying to achieve in here, right? With the direction is that, we say, hey, we're going to kind of like slowly replacing that product, then we need to set it straight so that they would know how to manage the system, how to sunset their resource or things of that nature. Or there's something that become we have to run together. Is some certain data set they don't have to up to speed. We can work it out. We can share the data from our side to them to help them up to speed so they can serve their segment of the client without hurting too much, right? So that's how I would approach to see what is the impact to it and why are we doing that, and then we have a solution toward that that implementation.
So in that first scenario, let's say I'm the other product manager and I find out that your new product and or feature will sunset my product. I don't think it's going to be as easy as a conversation as just telling me, sorry, Corey, you're going to sunset your product. Let me help you build a roadmap on how we're going to wind down your job and your resourcing and your teams. So
and that's not even my job, right, to do that, right? Because I need to go up to my up chain to say that, hey, we discovered this is going to be happening that, and sometimes it happened to me before. It already know that they have to do that, right? Always the other PM is not going to be happy. I wouldn't be happy, right? But I would do my part, through the chain communication, and I'll be very open, help the other PM to say, like, what can I do? I would let them expose, like, what about deployment plan, how we doing things, right? So at least they can, with the direction to sunset, they will need information to help them to kind of sunset it through, right? Or help them migrate data over to the other system that we have, to the system we have. So I will go a very open gesture and kind heart to try to work with the other person to handle it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So I like this answer because you walked through two specific scenarios and then you walked through a comprehensive solution and answer as to how you would do both of them, right? And you also talked about how you would handle it post-implementation. So I actually like this answer a lot and I thought it was really good. So no other feedback on that one. So that was great. And cool. I think I got most of the questions in the chat. Yeah, thank you everyone. This was great. Great for audience participation today. Thank you so much. And please give Philip a round of applause for answering all your questions, putting himself out there. This was excellent. And again, if anyone else wants to volunteer in the future, contact me or Albert. And yeah, Albert, back to you.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our mock interview today. Thank you so much, Philip, for volunteering, and Corey, as always, for coming back. We enjoyed this audience participation today and have many more webinars coming up, including our mock interview next week as well. Feel free to check out our Eventbrite page for more. Until then, thank you so much for watching today. Best of luck in your job search in the week ahead, and we will see you all soon. Thanks so much. Bye.